represent School Iona Grbiceanu from Alba Iulia. Me and my colleagues, for today, we had to present the second module, the identification of good teaching and learning practices, the inclusive classroom. We identified all the good practices. There were 15 in total. I want to present each of them just briefly, maybe the outcomes, and I will insist maybe on the inclusive part, because that's for our project. But here in this presentation, there is all the information anybody needs when they want to see the good practices, why it is a good practice, the description of all the activities that have to be done. This presentation will be on the platform. Everybody can find all the information there in this presentation. Okay. Okay, so this is module 2 of the course. In this module, we aim to present you the good teaching and learning practices identified and presented by each partner. We have there the logos. The main objectives. With the completion of this module, the trainees will be able to recognize lack of motivation in students, become aware of problems that students and teachers deal with in learning or teaching math, look back on their work and recognize where the mechanisms they will learn in this course will be extremely helpful for students as for them. And the outcomes, the trainees will be able to understand the need for connected STEAM with the real world, identify difficulties they encounter in their own teaching, and discuss an inclusive classroom and the importance of one. We'll begin with North Macedonia and Goce Delta University. Probability, what their good practice identified. We have here for every country the instrument, the resources they are using. Okay, I will insist on the outcomes. With the completion of this module, the trainees will be able to find and systematically sort all possible outcomes for individual events and 2 consecutive events. We'll compare experimental with theoretical probability, perceiving that repeated experiments can have different outcomes. They will increase the number of repetitions of the experiment in order to come closer to theoretical probability, and will compare thinking, solutions, and conclusions. Okay, there's a short description of this method and why it is a good practice. I think for all the good practices, they are very good because they develop critical thinking, communication, creativity. I think all good practices have this idea why they are good practice. Okay, then the activities are very well described here, all the activities, and there are also the pictures. I inserted them there, so they are very nicely presented there. And I will insist on the inclusion class. The activity here, the pulling candy, when students receive an opaque bag or box of 12 red, 6 blue and 3 green candies, and a worksheet in which they should write down what kind of candy they pulled out of the box. And according to the data from the table, students will answer the questions from the worksheet. You have there the worksheet. So I think it's very easy for students who have disabilities. Okay. The results are also here recorded. For the assessment, the activities contain questions that students have to answer independently and draw conclusions. Why, how, what is happening, and they are expected to discuss and defend their views. And the assessment can be done using the worksheet 5 tasks in 5 minutes, the activities described before. Okay, then we go on North Macedonia from Ilinden. There are 2 good practices. The first one is related to percentages. Okay, the same thing with instrument, resources used. The outcomes. Should I read maybe all or just go further? They are here, so. Okay. The description and why it is a good method, the same, developing critical thinking, communication, collaboration, creativity. The activities, with all the pictures inserted here, there are pictures from their activities in the classroom. Okay. For the inclusion class, the figures drawing with overlap by 50%, 25%, 10%, and 20%, and a similar assessment made by the teacher. You have here down the pictures, how they have to fold the paper. And another activity with Lego cubes that are given a value of 5% and 10% for assembling 3D forms. Okay, the results are here, the conclusions, the quiz, also the assessment for this activity. And the other one, also from Illington, deriving formulas and determining the area of 2D shapes drawn on a grid of dots. Okay, the tools, the resources used. The outcomes, the trainees will perform simple formulas and express the variables through other variables in a given equation. They will determine the area of 2D shapes drawn on a grid of dots. They will use formulas for math and other objectives. They will develop a sense of cooperation and empathy with their classmates. The summary again and why it's a good practice. This is the first activity here with the pictures, of course. Okay, there are activities, they are very well described here. The peak theorem. Me personally, I learned something new about math while reading all those good practices and doing this presentation. Okay, the one in the schoolyard, they have to draw something there, using the rope and boats also. Okay, for the inclusion classroom, they use elastic shapes made by the teacher on a geometrical board, 3D shape model made of colored paper. It's something very easy and it can be very easily used for the students who have their disabilities. It's not a difficult activity at all, and I think they like it. The results and the evaluation that will be discussed. The formative assessment will be done by monitoring the activity of students during the class. Okay, that was about from Illington, and now Spain with the Open Europe, the learning mathematics with emerging methodologies, gamifying and Kahoot, the platforms that I think, at least Kahoot, all of us, or some of us use it. Okay, the activities are also here described. For the inclusion class, in using the platforms, is very important to make heterogeneous groups so that when you form the groups, include the students with disabilities in the other groups. But also pay attention that he or she also works in that group, because if some students might, okay, you don't know, you have disabilities, stay away. It's important for us to supervise their activity and make sure that they are actually included in those groups and they do something in that activity. In this activity using the Kahoot platform. Okay, and the other one from Spain, also from Open Europe, the realistic math education project IMAT, inclusive mathematics teaching. Okay, you have here also the outcomes, the resources. It's very well also described what the students have to do for this. Also for the inclusion class, the same thing, working in groups, which is very important to integrate those students. Okay, for Spain, from also from Open Europe, you had 3.
I guess so.
The graspable math, I didn't know what was that. Okay, Camelia gave me some explanations, of course. Why it is a good practice, everything here. For the inclusion class, the design of the tool helps to overcome the obstacle of formal notation. It has intuitive, fluid and simple interfaces based on modern and innovative web designs. All of this helps to bring learners closer together and enhance learning experiences for all the learners, including those with learning difficulties. The results and the assessment, okay, now we go to Julio Antonio. They identified as a good practice, learn how to operate integer numbers, the addition, subtraction, multiplication and division, with different variations, seeing the different properties. The games developed within this project are designed to both support and improve the digital, numeracy and linguistic skills. Okay, they use that quiz, that platform in this good practice. Okay, for the inclusion class, the exercise can be personalized at different levels, so the exercises can fill the differences between children. Because on that platform you can choose the age and the level of the student, and we can use it also for the inclusion class. Okay, and the other good practice from Spain, learn functions and discuss how equations and inequations can be solved using GeoGebra representations. Okay, The outcomes developed within this project are designed to both support the digital numeracy and linguistic skills. The activities you have here, the diagrams and how they have to represent those functions, I think, from math. There are functions. Okay. For the inclusion class, it's also the same to form heterogeneous groups where the students with disabilities should be included, but also pay attention to actually they have for them to work, to do something. Okay, for the Cyprus, the services assessment in an organization. There are a lot of instruments and tools here, a lot of sites that you can access them, and you can find a lot of interesting videos, games. Okay, the outcome, this good practice provides a learning plan of activities that lead, enable and support a student to acquire skills for data collection methods and sampling methods and techniques, construction and use of appropriate questionnaires, printed or electronic, considering questionnaire validity and reliability control methods, use of appropriate software, using methods of statistical analysis and presentation of results, use of appropriate software, and the representation of the results, writing a detailed research report. There is also the summary, why it's a good practice there for the activity. Okay, the inclusion class, the whole approach provides opportunities that are appropriate for students of any ability, thus it can be used in an inclusive class, and you have the results on that page for STEAM. And the other good practice for Cyprus, the linear programming for gifted students aged 12-14, the resources, the instruments, the outcomes. I won't leave them any longer. There are a lot of outcomes identified for this good practice. The summary of this good practice, some activities that can be done for students this age. The inclusion class, the whole approach is mainly addressed to gifted students, but with minor adjustment, it can be used in an inclusive class too. So this is maybe for students that learn more. Okay, Croatia, the solving problems, that was a good practice that it identified. The first one you have here, they had an activity with money, kuna, what they had to do there. It's described here. They have to answer the questions. Okay, there are 4 activities, and about the inclusion class, you have to instruct the student in detail on each step and element of mathematical activity and acquaint him with the structure of tasks and explain individual operations and sequence. We also have to attract attention with various didactic procedures and encourage active participation. We have to minimize the distractors, like do not sit by the window or in the middle of the restless students, but in a quiet place in the classroom, for example with quiet students or students with whom he has good cooperation, so that he can be least disturbed by classroom events. Workspace should contain only what is necessary for that work. The instructions given to him, those students who have problems, should be short, and of course we should reward the perseverance and attention. It's important not to take into account their spelling mistakes, if necessary, to read the instructions on the written exam, check that the student has understood the instructions, the task, and take into account subsequent corrections on the exams. If possible, with screen paper, avoid red and green print, increase the font size in comprehensible reading text, so the font size at least 14 points, and use bold or highlighted letters. We should avoid underlying titles or strings of words which can cause words to visually merge. We should also increase the space between letters and lines and separate lines with double space, and divide the text into smaller units and organize it in separate lines, not in a continuous sequence. The results are also here, recorded. Okay, and the other one, quadrilaterals, the circumference and area of some geometric shapes. Okay, you have the description also, why is a good practice. For the inclusions class, students have to draw or construct their own ideas and figures. They can be either very simple or complex one. It depends if the students are gifted or they have disabilities. And it's very important that everyone to work at his or her own pace and tempo. You don't have to hurry the students to the activity in a limited time for the one who have disabilities. The results are also recorded here, the assessment also. Also from Croatia, project task in school project, sustainable tourism. They had to go, an interesting activity, they had to go to the tourism in Vodce, I think, and they to ask there about tourism, the number of tourists in the town, to analyze the data and draw some charts. Okay, and the last one is us from Romania, where we have the visual representations. Camila has also prepared a PowerPoint presentation here with the visual representation with examples. I will show it to you after that. You have the outcomes, the summary, and there are some activities here that are described, but it's very also important for inclusion class to form the heterogeneous groups, because visual presentations, and you will see, are they can be with small numbers, and they can be done by students who have disabilities also. The results and the assessment, and the second one also from us, metacognitive strategies. I won't read everything. The activities here are 5 activities, I think, as I remember. And also for the inclusion class, it's important to form the heterogeneous groups. And the results are here, the assessment also. The application from our country. Camelia divided here module, how to do the representation, and I hope you, the math teacher, understand better than I can actually explain how to do those representations. These are only the examples for formulas, and after, okay, this one maybe is easier for children, this one is a little bit more complicated, but they still study it in our school. And then after they know this, you have there the point, the circle is for 1, the square for 10, triangle 100, the triangle with the upside down 1000, and the diamond 10,000. And you have here the example for number 23, how to calculate the square of that number. You have to divide it, of course, by tens, units, and if it's a bigger number like here, divided by hundreds, thousands, and then using those that code up there, you have to do the calculations. So for example, 20 multiplied by 20 is 400, and then you have there the triangles, and you will draw 4 triangles to match 400. And you have to do all the calculations here. This one, yes, it's also the same, it's easy if you know. I think it's easier for students because the calculations are only by 0, so they don't have to calculate something very, very difficult. Okay, and the other one, this one, I actually didn't understand quite well. Camelia explained to me a lot, but maybe you, the math teachers, will actually be able to understand better these examples here made by Camelia. Okay, it's okay. It is up over there, so you will see how it works. This one is very complicated, but I think
no, it's not.
It's not complicated. Well, for me, it's complicated, but I think this is the easy one.
This is the same rules, but with
more squares. Yes.
The shape 3 by 3.
It's very easy. It's okay to use them for the inclusion class, but with low numbers, not that so many. Okay, so thank you
Thank you
for your attention.